guys, it's Cooper here and welcome to another video. And today I just wanted to tell you guys something that I've noticed with living on both the East and the West Coast and collecting video games and buying video games in both areas. And I thought that this was kind of interesting, and I guess it's not something that I would normally make a video about, but I was just thinking about it, and I just finished recording my most recent answer video. So I already had the camera and the lights and everything set up, so I figured I would just record this now, and hopefully some of you guys will find it interesting. So I have lived in Washington, California, and Florida, and I have purchased video games while living in all three states. Collected in two. I didn't really collect anything when I lived in California, although I was still buying and selling stuff on eBay, so I was still looking for video games. I still visited a couple video game stores and stuff like that. So something that I've noticed, and I haven't been to many other states, so I don't know how this really compares to other areas. Maybe it's completely different, but I noticed a huge difference in the ways that I could find video games in Washington versus Florida. And I'm not going to really talk about California much because the main differences I've noticed are between Washington and Florida, and I just wanted to talk about those and compare those. So in Washington, the thrift stores here are pretty good, and I find a lot of stuff at Goodwill, Value Village, Salvation Army, St. Vincent de Paul, places like that. I'm able to find a lot of stuff here. And I live in Washington now, for anyone who doesn't know. So the thrift stores are generally pretty good. And garage sales are pretty good. However, we only really have them during the summer when it's warm out. Obviously, it rains a lot in the Northwest, and it gets cold during the winter, so we don't have year-round garage sales or anything like that. There aren't really too many flea markets here. I mean, I'm sure there are smaller ones here and there, but I really haven't come across too many flea markets in the Northwest. And then pawn shops is another thing. There are some pawn shops around here, and around like Portland, Oregon, there are a few, but there's not that many. There are a few more up towards the Seattle and Tacoma area. There's a couple Cash Americas up there, and those are really great. But what I noticed is that here in the Northwest, thrift stores are like the best place to look for stuff. And I guess I'm not only talking about video games, but just stuff in general. Thrift stores here are pretty good. Now, in comparison to Florida, thrift stores there suck. Thrift stores in Florida are awful. And I've been to a bunch there around between like Orlando, Tampa, and like Daytona Beach, like that little area, all of like Central Florida. I've been to most of the places all around there because I lived in Orlando for a couple years, and thrift stores there are just terrible. They don't have many video games, and if they do, they're really overpriced. They don't have many electronics at all. Their toy sections are generally pretty small as well. What I've noticed is that at the thrift stores in Florida, it's mostly clothing and furniture, which is kind of weird because it's completely different from up here where the thrift stores, they still have furniture and clothing, but most of the other sections, like the other aisles and stuff at Goodwill's here, are still pretty full. Like, most thrift stores here in the Northwest, we have an entire aisle for office products and craft supplies and stuff like that. Whereas I don't remember ever seeing an aisle for anything like that in Florida. And it's just mostly clothing and stuff there, and it's completely different. It's like opposite. And up here, like I said, we don't have many pawn shops, but down in Florida, pawn shops are like the number one place to look for video game stuff. And going from living in Washington and collecting video games, then moving to Florida and collecting video games there, I almost had to like start over with my knowledge of how to find stuff because it's almost completely opposite and it's so much different. And I just thought it was interesting enough to make a video about, just to talk about the differences. because obviously most of my YouTube videos have been done while I lived in Florida. Most of my collecting was done in Florida, and the pawn shops down there are amazing. You know, there's the different chains like Cash America, La Familia, and Value Pawn. Those are the three chains, like the three big chains of pawn shops down there, and they're everywhere. Just in Orlando, there's probably 50 pawn shops, and it's awesome. There's tons of stuff to find. You have so many opportunities and so many locations to go game hunting that you're almost guaranteed to find something. And even being such a major city like that, with multiple collectors, I could still go almost every day and find something for my collection, and I would find good games all the time, which is crazy. Like, I go to Goodwill's here, and it's not like I'm finding Mario Kart Wii at a Goodwill, but I'll find 5 in one day at the pawn shops in Florida. So they're like polar opposites, and it's really crazy. And I've said before, not on camera or anything, but I've said to people in person that in the Northwest, you game hunt at thrift stores, and in Florida, you game hunt at pawn shops. And personally, that's really how I see it happening. Of course, there's game stores and places like that, and GameStops and all that, but as far as like getting good deals, that's where you're going to be looking in those locations. And living in both areas, it was very weird at first, and but once I moved down there, and after I had learned like pawn shops are where you go to find good deals on video games, it was great, and it was crazy, and I wish there were pawn shops up here in the Northwest like there are in Florida, because I would, people have been telling me that they're really surprised by how many video games and stuff I've been able to acquire in the past 9 months of collecting. But honestly, if those pawn shops in Florida were up in this area, this collection behind me would be 4 times as big by now, because there's just so much. And you can develop relationships with the managers and stuff at the pawn shops. You can get even better deals. They would always take me into the back to look at things before they've even come out, so I'd get first dibs on a lot of stuff. I'd get cut crazy deals on things, and you can't do that at a Goodwill. You can't go into the back and look through stuff. You can't get discounts on things at Goodwill unless it's like the color tag is off for that week or something. So yeah, I just thought that'd be really interesting to talk about. And if you guys have anything else to add, like if you live in a different area, like I've always been kind of curious like about different areas, and if for some reason I were to randomly move to like North Dakota, would I be able to find games? I don't know what it's like there. I've never gone game hunting in other locations like that. So I'm interested to hear from you guys in the areas that you live. What are your experiences with game hunting? Is it like it is in the Northwest, where you're pretty much stuck with Goodwills and places like that? Or do you have a bunch of pawn shops like in Florida? Or is there, in your area, are there a bunch of flea markets? Or, just what's it like? I'm interested to know. And so yeah, just leave a comment down below and let me know what it's like in your area. And I hope you guys really enjoyed the video. I know it's kind of a random topic, and it just kind of popped into my head. I figured I'd make a video about it and maybe be a little interesting. So if you guys want to go ahead and like and subscribe, that'd be very awesome. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time.